We talked about the use of line and column. Initially, even though they were in effect, they weren't adhered to. Okay, so you pull all that together, here's the asymmetry that Napoleon got over his edges. I believe so he enforced much better than edges, at least for early on. And of course, we raised the question, how do you exploit this? So let's look into it. Okay, so what I'm laying out here, rather detailed chart, the general features, plan and resolution security. Let's read it. You read the left side, and I'll take you to the right side. Take the top. Nobody's doing here. All the other times he's doing it. The idea is trying to find out where his adversary is by sending his spies up to a planning. He's eliminating possibilities. In other words, keep his own plan simple, also reduces them uncertainty. Okay, nobody's doing here his idea of security. In other words, just an amorphous kind of a being. Guys can't figure out what's going on. All different ways he's doing to do that. In fact, you can think of the security as being a change for his vigorous offensive being the action, or being the chief. And note this, fatigue, dispersion, tactical concentration. To read the literature carefully, talk about assembly and concentration. If you really read between the lines, what it is a sort of strategic dispersion followed by a tactical concentration. In other words, you're operating very wide range and gradually you're coming closer and closer to bring your force together with a large force pounced on the fraction your adversary. That's what you're trying to do. And we'll get into that later on. And then vigorous offensive action. In other words, the way of grabbing initiative. Well, these are the kind of things that he was doing. It's a strategic thing. Nobody's talking about it. Single line of operation doesn't mean, unfortunately, some people draw the wrong idea. Even though it's a single line of operation, you have people spread out laterally and also longitudinally. There's multiple thrusts going on. Things separately, they're operating in organic forces. And also note this. In other words, try to seize and isolate his forces. You can't be greasy club. So you can gain leverage on the areas. And note the kind of thing he's talking about here. Once again, you see sort of a chain he operates. Part of his force in order to tie the guy up, the other part, of course, in order to hold him apart. And his idea of setting up supporting centers of operation, or depots or bases. The idea being, rather than being constricted by one line of communication, you want multiple lines of communication, so he gets sawed off from one, he's got other lines of communication he can feel. By doing that, that frees up his freedom. He's got more freedom to move his adversary. The other adversary only has one line of communication. That's the basic idea. And his aim is really quite simple: destroy enemy army. In other words, you're not taking out the terrain, you want to take out the army. It's a partial truth. Didn't get it all right. Remember, down in Spain, he destroyed the regular army, but then the guerrillas took his people out. So it's not just the formal forces, it's any resistance force. Not just the formal forces. But he had a partial truth. He did recognize terrain doesn't fight war. Okay. In any case, we'll see some of his examples of his strategies here. Strategy of envelopment. Idealized schematic, where you actually tie up a force here, force down the flank, sneak in the back door, cut them off, and then fold back into them. In the meantime, put pressure. The other guy's trying to make all the adjustments to pull them slowly apart. It's called strategy of envelopment. Then multiple directions. Strategy of central position. This is one that Jomini likes to talk about. Wherein what he would do is the other guy spread out, he'd wedge in between them, showing up here. And then you have a secondary attack. SA stands for secondary attack here. Small force here. The main attack, MA going against this force here. After he cleans these guys out, comes back and takes out the other force. But there's a hidden assumption there. What is it? Anyway, that's right. You're not going to get away with that unless you can operate a faster tempo in your advance. You can't play that. So there's a hidden assumption. The idea of speed. And it often isn't brought out. Exactly right. Okay, with that in mind, let's step down to the tactical level. I'll let you read these, and I'll talk. Let me let you read these 2 things I'll talk to. You notice I took quotes here in both cases, because they're so nicely written. Pardon me. Incidentally, when I'm talking about early tactics, I didn't say change all of a sudden. In other words, the process that took place early on these tactics and later on these tactics. In other words, they transpired over a period of time. Okay, let's discuss it. Note the underlines. These two underlines actually capture the whole essence of it. Nobody's saying carry out a general rather than minutely regulated mission. Carry out a general rather than minutely regulated. What does that provide you? How does it be adapted? Minutely regulated, you're non-adapted. With that adaptability, then you go after the changing that goes on. In other words, strength against weakness. So the idea here is adaptability, strength against weakness. That's the whole message, the whole thing. Over here, don't. Heavy work. Strength going against strength. Now everything carefully timed. What's an example of that people are trying to promulgate today? The Army, everybody's seen the Army Field Manual 100-5? Synchronization. How in the hell do you synchronize human beings? Remember, they got those four things up front. Depth, synchronization, agility, and initiative. Agility and initiative are good. Depth, there's nothing wrong with it, except it's the wrong part of the man. It should be in the back. They didn't go with agility and initiative. Synchronization is a disaster. You don't synchronize human beings. You synchronize watches. In harmony, they should use harmony instead of synchronization. Synchronization is part of harmony, but harmony is not necessarily a part of synchronization. In other words, harmony is a more general term. It's a mistake. So they still, God damn it, haven't learned their lesson yet. Then they say, well, we didn't mean it. I said, take it out. Then why is it in there? Now, that doesn't fit with initiative or agility. Those initiative or agility are human term. Synchronization is a mechanical term. Now, do the machines fight war or human beings? Remember, they're putting up front their philosophy. I'll tell them right to their face, it's bullshit. Because learn how to use that noodle. If they want to put someone else up, they're okay, but it doesn't go alongside. You don't synchronize human beings. That's not saying you shouldn't synchronize watches. I'm not against that. But once in a while, you want to have very tight synchronization with the artillery coming in on time, on target, or something like that. But you don't synchronize human beings. You're not, you only talking about artillery, synchronize watches, or something like that? Because you use the word harmony, you can use the word synchronization later on, and guess what? It's in accord with harmony because it's a subset of harmony. But it's not all of harmony. They've got to get that through their goddamn heads. Synchronization is a subset of harmony. Doesn't mean you shouldn't have it, it's a subset. It does not go for human beings. Anybody tell me to synchronize me, I get personally irritated. Okay, so that's the problem. It's careful timing. Well, Christ, if you're in a war of confusion, you're going, how do you have to be careful timing? That's bullshit. So here's the essential point. I guess they like this part. I guess that's what they read in Napoleon. That's the pervasive part that came down. Comes out in synchronization. I'm sorry. It's the essential point. All I'm doing is I'm just taking down the essential point.
But also the 105 on synchronization. Now, your point's well taken. I agree with it completely. But synchronization is, they also refer to it as a state of mind of the commander when he's developing his plan to consider the application of everything. There's one little statement in there.
Well, he's going to synchronize everything.
No, I mean, he's considering things.
He's considering, I want him to use harmony, and he can put the synchronization down in a subset. He can't know everything what his troops are going to do. Otherwise, he's going to go against a very basic. What he's going to do is lay down what he wants done. They're going to determine how it's going to be carried out. He's not going to know the infinite details. If he tries to get in there, he's going to screw up the operation, period. We've done that over and over again. I guess these generals, I don't know what the hell they're thinking about, because they ran a platoon one time, 20 years earlier. I guess they still want to fight at the platoon level. Did you know Patton criticized this guy? He told him, God damn it, I don't want you to interfere with their tactics. You just tell them what they're supposed to do, and they're going to do it, and that's your job. Be sure they get the resources. He told his colonel. Quote. He said, all you're going to do is muck it up. He understood that. You can't say he wasn't a successful commander. He said, all you're going to do is muck it up.
Colonel Boyd, didn't we start doing that, though, during the Korean War, with nuclear weapons and communications were better?
You're raising a very crucial point. I think you're on to it. I normally bring it out. It's a very good point you raised there. I think what's happened is because of the rise of nuclear weapons. And communications. Well, of course, we had communications during World War II.
But they weren't as good as they are
still quite
good.
Communications, radio. I mean, they're not as good as today, but of course, 20 years from now, they'll be better than we have today, too. But I mean, they were not like World War I or previous communications. But the point I'm trying to bring out was the advent of the nuclear weapons and also the communications. Well, they didn't want some guy, flinging off nuclear weapons, so they had very tight control because, awesome weapon. And they should. But you shouldn't, because you have a nuclear weapon, you want to have it all at the levels. Once again, that's a rigidity of mind.
Well, I mean, since the Korean War, take company commander, his power, or whatever he had, has declined because of those two areas. Now, one time, I think the company commander...
Look, if you want to give an order, everybody's going to order. What you want to do is you want to tell somebody what you expect. Let them determine how it's going to be carried out. You should also tell them why you want it done. Sort of, so they can see that there's a reason for it, not some goddamn bullshit. And then you should put in, also, let them determine how, why they determine how. And then you should put in whatever constraints it. Because remember, you're probably going to deposit this thing in a larger context, and if they start doing anything they want, it can cause you some problems. So you should put the constraints. Unfortunately, what we do is we make the constraints so goddamn narrow, the guy can only do one thing, so therefore they've got no freedom of action.
All those things you just said.
Yeah.
Give the guy an order, let him do how he wants. That's what we call in school.
That's right.
But then we have speakers come in and take low intensive conflict, for instance.
I know exactly what you're telling me. Oh, we agree with you. And then they tell you, and of course, you don't have any freedom of action. That's exactly right. In other words, they're telling you one thing, they're saying one thing, but they're doing another. In other words, it's a huge goddamn deception operation. On you. You're the object of the deception. You don't have to do that. I'll give you a good example when I was overseas of how they wanted me to do it. I was initially, you raise a point, here's I'm going to bring it up, it's an interesting point that came up. I was sent over to Task Force Alpha. You probably know that was the old census program, sometimes called Eagle White. Of course, some other things people didn't like to work on criminal. In any case, over in Southeast Asia. In any case, one night, eventually I also made me base commander. They went through 7 base commanders in 2 years. So I said, boy, you got to clean up. I didn't want this job. Hell, I don't want this job here. But I had to take it over. Well, one night I'd been there for a while. I didn't even know what my responsibilities were. So a couple of our electric goon, those spy C-47s crashed with listening equipment, the limp gear and all that on there. Of course, the guys are out there in areas where they're making drills and that. Of course, we had to send out some choppers. So the guy says, hey, you're the commander in the squad. Hell, I hadn't been there too long. I said, I am? He said, yeah. I said, okay, let's go down. And he said, here's your checklist. I got in there, fell over. What do you mean checklist? I took that goddamn thing and went out the window. I said, now where's a map? Let's find out where they are. Let's start making some decisions. The guy brought the checklist back in. I threw it back out the goddamn window. Some captain. I said, now you can't operate this way. They don't know. I said, I know if I'll be reading this, right? Those guys they'll die of starvation out there before we get to them. So I said, now where's the map? I said, get that gun in. Now you point where they are. He said, we don't know it. Who knows? On that. This is fun. What resource do we have? Get the choppers out there. Then we found out we didn't have enough choppers, so they had a certain. They said, yeah, but the thing is, these guys got to go first. I said, fuck, I don't care. What is the situation out there? So I reversed the whole order, see, and sent the choppers out and everything else. And he kept bringing the checklist back. I said, I don't give a goddamn thing. Oh, you're making that damn thing. You bring it back in here again. Because he said, you know, as a new guy, I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I got them all out. Blew up the 2 goons. We had to blow them up with the security device and got them all in there. I didn't go buy any goddamn checklist. I said, you know, what do you have to? I just went down my mind. The kind of things I didn't make. If I start reading checklists, oh, it'd be over. That's bullshit. Of course, I'm a fighter policy. I do that with. It's just like he's a fighter pilot back here every year. I think it maybe still happened when I was there. They had this huge book. You got to sign about all the regulations that you signed it, and so if you violate it, they can hammer your ass. Well, nobody ever reads it. They just sign it, and they walk out the door and say, yeah, I read the son of a bitch. That's a huge deception. You still sign that bitch, don't you? I bet it's probably this goddamn thick now.
You don't. Yeah, they're a lot thicker now. You don't sign anymore, sir. They just say you're responsible for all these regulations, even some that you don't know of.
Yeah,
that's the new one.
Yeah, so everybody walk out. I said, we're all a bunch of goddamn liars. We go in here, great. So I walk out the door. It take 30 seconds. Nobody reads the son of a bitch. And they had this huge book. That was so if you violate something, they could hang your ass and get your name. That's all it was for. If you really read that thing, you'd be here a week. Like he says, even thicker now. They got more regulations in the meantime. Huge. We always used to laugh. I said, we're all a bunch of goddamn liars. You go down there and stand in line. This huge book. Boy, you really walk them through there fast. It's a disaster. Okay. Okay, we look at Napoleon. Did I take you through that? Yeah, okay, here we go. I'm getting off track. Okay, Napoleon's art of war. See, he did exploit ambiguity, deception, and mobility strategically. Look what happened down the capital. Actually, he reinstalled the 79 in Druid. Not only had very heavy information. We describe the use of line and column. Generally, line that column per move because it's not much. Okay. And he emphasized conquer war from top down. You want to get strategic success, you want to gain grand tactical success, and then tactical success. Strictly top down mentality. The supporters concept he set up was highly centralized command and control. Whereas he would have a scheme in his mind, wouldn't marshals didn't know, since they didn't know they had to do what he wanted to do, and they worried about their own troops wouldn't do it. It gets more and more rigid as you go down lower and lower. So the result is strategic maneuvers ambiguous and even prior to tactical concentration, after concentration, stereotype and all. And it could not even procure the victory because of obvious nature. Martin was a good example. Christ, he made some neat strategic move, and it was high diddle diddle right up the middle. He got taken out. Not only that, Wellington, as I told you before, said Napoleon came on the same old way, and we beat him in the same old way. Napoleon figured out how to take on those line and column down in Spain. Napoleon used the same technique, we used the same technique. So Napoleonic spirit, strategic fog followed by stereotype known as tactical assault. In other words, the strategic level and given time mark. Or this kind of one. We'll get into that later on why that happened. I'm going to talk about that right now. Okay? Now let's go on to the philosopher war, Clausewitz. He made that famous statement where he talks about character. Active policy of violence to impose one blow upon another. Later on, he made the statement. Not only war is politics by other means, we've all heard him say, war is an instrument of policy. Can anybody see anything wrong with that? The military is an instrument of policy. When you say something's an instrument, what are you really inferring? You got control of it. In other words, you got your tool or an instrument, you got control of it. You can't control war. You might be able to control the military's instruments, maybe not too much, but also. But you can never say it's an instrument of policy. And active policy is already went too far. It's not an instrument of policy. That presumes you can decide what's going to happen during it. You can't. Maybe that was our problem. We wanted to make the Vietnam War an instrument of policy. I'm sure that the idea wasn't to go in there and get kicked out. Another statement he made, which is good. Dual or active human interaction directed against an animate object react. The idea is you're not sure how he's going to do it. And since you're unsure how he's going to act, that builds up the idea of uncertainty. Among other things, uncertainty of information acts as an impediment to vigorous activity. And then he brings in very strong the importance of psychological and moral forces. We're talking about analog. Danger being love. Intelligence. Here he's talking about unintelligent service, mental intelligence, and emotional factors. Emotional factors, courage, confidence. Fear, anxiety, alienation being the negative ones, courage, confidence, and security being the positive. It can go either way, either impede or stimulate activity. And then he does a very interesting thing. He takes all the interaction of all these things and lumps under the notion of friction. Interaction, many of these factors, including all those above. And because that's all very complex, that tends to what? Impede activity. Overall, impedes activity. Anybody remember his famous statement? Friction is the only concept, I'm quoting him now, it's the only concept that more or less corresponds to those factors that distinguish real war from war on paper. The point is, if you haven't accounted for friction, you're not talking about real war. He's quite right. Think about it. Because the way he looks at friction, you read it very carefully. He treats it almost the same way we treat the modern, the way we look at the second law of thermodynamics, entropy. Today we talk about all natural processes generate entropy in the second law. The way he treats it, he doesn't treat it in the physics sense. So the way he's looking at friction is the way we almost look at the way we use entropy today in the second law. So in a sense, his ideas were a precursor to the second law. And that's laced throughout his book. And the fact that a commander has to overcome that friction. In fact, he, in a dialectic sense, he used genius as the opposite of friction to overcome that friction. The idea of genius at war, harmonious balance of mind and temperament. Permit one to overcome that friction and excel at that complex. While they can't change the character, nature, of war, they can change the nature and magnify the scope of operations. And then strategy. This strategy. Exhaust anyway, influence and increase expenditure. Brings it up over. And then seek out those centers of gravity from which all power movement dependent upon, so trace them back to a single one. Look at all those powers and see if ideally you can take it back to one. And then he squeezes it one more time. He says, in that effort, compress all effort against those centers into the fewest possible actions. Still not satisfied, he gives it another squeeze. He says, subordinate all minor or secondary actions as much as possible to all this activity. So by doing all these things, in a sense he's in harmony with his idea of friction. What he's trying to do is overcome his own internal friction. See what I'm saying? So he deal with it. Then move at the utmost speed. What are we talking about? And seek out the major battle for a minute. Decisive victory. His aim is quite simple. Remember enemy powers. Emphasis on destruction of armed forces. Not only the armed forces, but that was his emphasis. He also talked about capturing the city and taking the province or something like that. Also try to destroy your enemies. But he says this precedes what dominates the others. That's how you destruction of armed forces. Okay? Let's critique Clausewitz. Clausewitz overemphasized the decisive battle, underemphasized strategic maneuver. And the reason why is he tended to look at strategic maneuver only through 18th century eye. It was his reaction against war. They overplayed one against the other. Also, he emphasized method and routine at the tactical level. And why did he do it? In his own words. To reduce his own internal friction. Is there anything wrong with that? He wasn't looking outwardly. He's always looking at things in an absolute sense. Clausewitz is concerned with trying to overcome or reduce friction and uncertainty. He failed to address the idea, why not try to magnify adversaries' friction and uncertainty? The point is, if you have routine in your own service, and it's unpredictable, you've also lowered your adversary's friction relative to you. You've got to think of it both ways. Not only that, I had it earlier, I'm going to move at the utmost speed. What good does that do, the utmost speed? Why do you want to move at the utmost speed? I'm talking about an instant. Just to get there first? He should have said he wanted to be able to move faster than this. What's that most? The other guy's moving that most, he might be faster than you. So he's looking at things in an absolute sense. Remember, he looked at the absolute nature of war and the reality. He didn't look at it in terms of a relation. He was concerned with trying to exhaust his adversary by causing him to increase his expenditure? Why not turn the argument around? Why not to do up the idea of trying to paralyze your adversary, deny him even the opportunity to spend any of it? Not that the person is wrong, but he's not looking at it broadly enough. And he incorrectly stated, a center of gravity, quoting, is always found where the mass is contrary most densely. That's not always true. In a donut, the center of gravity, there is no mass. In a hollow steel ball, it's where the steel isn't. In a dumbbell, it's in the connection between the mass. You come up with counterexample after counterexample. It's not correct. Right? Men argue this is the place where the blows in this decision should be raised. And they talk about centers of gravity. The Army, capital, and public opinion. Follow up in the Army and capital didn't really follow up public opinion. If you ain't in public opinion, here's what happens. They have developed the idea of generating many non-cooperative centers by striking at those tendons, connections that permit a larger, that says longer, but should be larger center of gravity exist. In other words, you want to generate many non-cooperative centers of gravity so the guy can't function as an organic whole. What kind of people do that to us today? What about the growth? Didn't they do that in the U.S.? We had many non-cooperative centers of gravity in this country. As a result of that, what happened? We had to come home. And I might add that. Everybody said, well, we won all the battles. No, we didn't win all the battles. I don't care if they said so. I know one battle we didn't win. What battle was that? Everybody said, we won all the battles? I said, no. I said, if you're going to use battle as a measure of merit, you better be sure that it's not a narrow lens. It's going to be a broadest possible lens. We use that as a measure of merit for success. We lost the battle in the home front. When I bring that up, they don't only think of the physical battle. If you're talking about battles, you've got to talk about the moral, the mental, and the physical. They were thinking body count, attrition. That's what they were thinking. I know exactly what they were thinking. Like Harry Summers said, we won all the battles. I said, bullshit, Harry. We didn't win all the battles. Well, I know we did. I did all the investigation. Bullshit. You didn't. I know you didn't. I didn't do all your investigation. Did you win the battle of home front? Of course, you got quiet. I said, no, I didn't do that. There was the most important battle. That cost us the war. And what dimension was that played in? Physical? No. Moral. Which bears upon what Napoleon said. The moral is to the physical, the 3 is to 1. You get a chance to hear my strategy. I go that deep, but not just saying.
It's similar. It's the same thing. Symmetrical.
Say again. I'm not going to hear what you said.
You said what Napoleon said and what you just said.
Yeah.
The moral is the 3-1. I'm just trying to relate to it.
Oh yeah. But you see, I'm looking at it from another. I'm looking at that pyramid from another angle. Is all I'm saying. But I'm trying to bring out. See, we didn't win. We didn't win all of that. We lost the moral battle. You see, you guys only want to define a physical sense, but it's too weak. It's not true. But see, attrition warfare is easy. Guys, you just go out there, just slug off artillery, machine gun rounds, all that bullshit. You don't even have to think. Pound bullshit. You lead troops. Your first concern, your first duty is to your troops. You don't want to goddamn run up a goddamn hill and clean out, your company and say, well, shit, we tried. When you could have come in the back door. Remember? But I told you, Pat, I said, hold them by the nose and kick them in the ass. What are you talking about? Get them concentrate in one way and kick the shit out of it in a different direction. Hit them when he ain't looking. In fact, you got a good statement in your new warfighting manual. That thing by Slim is beautiful. Your warfighting book that there's in your conduct of war, remember that little quote by Slim at the end? He said, bullshit in the principle of war. Here's all you got to remember. It's a beautiful statement. He has it exactly right. He was a smart guy. He's in the wrong theater, so he didn't get much credit. Okay, so what does all this mean? So to attack this, let's go in reverse order. Let's assume we can generate many non-cooperative centers of gravity. If we can do that, what do? We deny the opportunity to generate, we impede vigorous activity. We impede vigorous activity, what does that mean? We maximize friction and uncertainty. That's exactly right. So very often you turn the argument around and you see what's going to happen. Because it can't function as organic. And so there's the message. Did not see that many non-cooperative conflicting centers of gravity paralyzed adversary but denying the opportunity to operate directed fast. And they impede vigorous activity and maximize. rose blade to the hilt.
And that being divide and conquer?
Yes. But there's many divisions, you know what I mean? There's multiple. That's exactly right. It's just another rich blade, divide and conquer. But not just in a physical sense, what? In a moral sense, a mental sense. You understand what I'm saying? They think of divide and conquer to split this force off. I'm talking about a moral mental sense as well. And so, since he did not see it, the likely result's not too surprising. Ergo, World War I. Now let's look at Jomini.
Can we go back a second? So what, I'm puzzled on how we, the friendly side, create the many centers of gravity simply by aiming at the decisive points with the one center of gravity that Nixie has.
Well, you want to know your adversary first. You know, you got to understand your adversary. What are those things that you can concentrate on? You can divide him up so he can't function as a whole, not just physically, but morally and mentally as well.
Well, wouldn't just your multiple thrusts be one example?
Multiple thrusts, that's one example, which, you know, we talked about that earlier. That's, yeah, a lot of it's a physical sense, but it's done physically. On the other, well, if you think multiple thrusts, you can have multiple thrusts, moral, mental, and physical too. But if you think of the battlefield, you can kind of think of physical, but you'll also get moral, mental implications that flow out of that, even though it's physical.
Is there such a thing as a center of gravity?
Oh, that's a good question. It's hard, you know, you're talking about center of gravity. See, I think, you know, you've heard the people say you've got a good question for them because I don't like the term personally. And the reason why people say we're going to go after adversary's strategic center of gravity is, what the hell is that? We didn't know our adversary. We didn't know ourselves, but we're going to find their strategic center of gravity. I find that a very interesting phrase. And they say they went after ours. I said, that's not quite true. I agree that as a result, the American society became divided. It turned out to be our strategic center of gravity. But they didn't know that ahead of time. They found out about it after the fact, and they levered it. They didn't start out that way. I'm talking about Geoff and his boys in Vietnam.
The warfighting, John Smith's warfighting manual, when he talks about vulnerabilities, we're on to something better in the center of gravity.
Yes, in fact, I think that's a much better term.
Also, we sort of line.
Remember, as a matter of fact, Sun Tzu said it. Remember what he said? In fact, I got it in my, what manual do I have? Which one from that manual? What part of it I got it in there? I got it in one of these. I don't know where I put this. What's in my strategy kit? Remember what he said? Seize that, which is the vulnerability. Seize that which your adversary holds dear or values most highly. Then he will conform to your desire. That's a vulnerability. He said that. Sun Tzu, back 400 seize that which your adversary holds dear or values most highly. Then he will conform to your desire.
And John qualifies it by saying critical. For example, his PX may be vulnerable, but sure is on the critical.
That's
So
right.
you got to look at what's vulnerable.
That's right.
What's critical.
But that's what but note how Sun Tzu said. Seize that which your adversary holds dear or values most highly. That is critical.
What if it's not vulnerable?
Huh? Well, I mean, but I'm talking about, but he's always talking about strength against weakness. I mean, he doesn't say it directly tied with it.
So you're kind of feeling your way.
He's feeling your way. So he recognizes it.
Back every vulnerability. Eventually you get on to something.
And you may not know that at the time exactly what that is.
See,
See, let's say you're gonna penetrate a front. You want to go after your adversary's weakness, strength against weakness. You may not know that exactly. One way of finding out those is multiple thrusts. But some are going to get hung up. Some will leak through. The ones that are leaking through, you know they're doing it. So then you can shift your spear pump and ram it home through those. In other words, you're adapting to circumstance. You see what I'm getting at?
I'm hearing all, but I'm trying to pull all of it.
You understand what I'm saying? In other words, you say, okay, they look sort of here, but in the meantime, you ram some of them in there, see? And some are leaking through, and the other ones are being hung up. Okay, the ones that are hung up, you don't reinforce those. You just have them sort of hold a position, keep the other guy tied up, and reinforce or re-support those guys that are going through and ram that home in real deep into the guy.
But I'm not getting the connection between the successful thrust and the vulnerability.
I know what you're saying.
I mean,
You have let's differentiate between weakness and vulnerability. A weakness may not be really, the guy may not be vulnerable because he's weak, and that's what you're talking about.
because you're going through there.
No, I mean, you may find a weakness and go through, but he may not be too vulnerable necessarily. So, but also because you got the weakness, so but then because you can exploit that weakness, and you can direct that out of that weakness effort into his vulnerability.
Okay, now the $64 question.
See, because if you go after something that's vulnerable, critical vulnerability, he probably knows it is too. So therefore, he's going to put a lot of forces there. Now you got strength going against strength. In other words, you got Verdun and all those battles again. You understand what I'm saying? So sometimes it's better to exploit the weakness as a result. You can get to the vulnerability. Did you ever read Manstein's thing on lost victories? Remember, he's always talking about unhinging your front. And they'd be vulnerable. What he's trying to do is find a weakness and then start getting behind them. But they're going to abandon these areas where they're vulnerable. So he gets at the vulnerability by getting to the weakness first.
Do we need to go through the intellectual exercise before the battle to think that through? Or you just...
Well, I think what you do, I mean, you don't want to recipe it. But I wouldn't want to recipe it. What you want to do is you want to lay out the philosophy so your guys think this way. Because let's say he's a commander. You give him a task to do something. You're out in front. He has to decide how to do it. He may not know exactly where the guy. He may have sort of a feeling, some fingers picking through the weak. And in the meantime, he's going to allocate his forces and go through. And then he says, "Okay, these guys are succeeding, so I'm going to support that. You other guys hang on, keep the other guy down, let's bring him home. Now I'm going to take advantage of that weakness."
But if we try to tell you...
In other words, it's an opportunistic kind of thing. You see what I'm saying? You're taking advantage of the situation as it unfolds.
As it unfolds. But I think what we teach is identify the critical vulnerability, have a focus of effort towards it, and let your commander's intent spell that out. But that's kind of a neat prescription.
That may cause you some problems, what I'm saying. You may be allocating strength against strength. You understand what I'm saying? Because if you see it as critical vulnerability, he probably does too, so he's going to defend that son of a bitch.
You may have to do something initially, try to throw him away from that.
That's okay. But what you're doing, you've got to set up some kind of operation, exploit some weakness, which may not be critical. Then if you can get him to goddamn allocate toward that weakness and expose that vulnerability, there's nothing wrong in that. But you got to get the exposure first, otherwise you can't get to it.
I can follow that. But how does the commander's intent, which is another tool we talk about that we need.
What do you mean by intent? Let's ask ourselves, what do you mean by intent? Let's separate. We got some confusion in this word. I'm going to give you 3 words so we can sort it out. First of all, you give your guys a mission. What is to be done, right? What's the difference between mission and intent? Anybody? We've got to distinguish between them, otherwise we don't know what we're talking about.
The mission being more specific as to who, what, where, and when somebody's going to do something?
Well, the mission generally is, you think of as sort of a lower level effort relative to the intent. The mission is what has to be done. The intent's the reason behind it, and usually encompasses a larger effort. So in that sense, you're correct. Okay, but then you got mission, you got the intent, and behind that, it's a little bit more insidious. You got motive. Mission first, being more specific, you'd like to say, then the intent, and then the motive. So the mission is what you want done, these guys do. The intent is the higher level intent behind it, and there also may be a political motive even behind that intent. So, like you might say, okay, we want to direct this thrust and initial operation out here. Our intent is to do this. Okay, you've got to lay something out ahead of time. But as it begins to unfold, you may want to change that intent too. As it unfolds in different ways. Say, hey, I can gain leverage by this. Then you shift the sphere of pump. You shift your intent and tell your people why. Don't get too hung up on all these things, too much on these words. You want to keep yourself fluidity. See, I look at the intent as the why behind the mission is the what. The mission is the what. The intent is the why.
I'm thinking 2 things. One is
or as he says, like you can think of it this level. You can think of you give a task to some company, see, then you want to know the, let's say, the regimental intent behind it. In other words, he's thinking on a broader level, but they have more specific mission. So a mission is related to an intent, but it tends to be, like he says, more specific or lower level relative to the intent. In other words, the intent's more general. And that's why I think it's the why. That's why I say you think of the mission as the what, the intent is the why. So that's why, in other words, you're folded into a larger, the intent is a larger mission. You want to think of it that way. Where the mission is a smaller intent.
Initial discussion, getting back to vulnerability.
Did I make sense out of that to anybody, everybody?
I think on the vulnerability,
You're equating that with the enemy's critical point or center of gravity, I think is what we've been referring to. And we're saying direct our strength against an enemy weakness, with the overall objective of that thrust being his center of gravity or
Nothing
critical
wrong
point.
if you want to get the vulnerability, but remember,
But I think that's where the disconnect
you've got to get that exposed first. That's all I said is you want to get that exposed. If you don't expose it first, go after vulnerability. If he knows it's there, you're going to get strength going against strength. That's the only argument I gave you.
Well,
You see, often we think direct. There's his vulnerability. We're going to go charge right to it. You lose Christ, you lose a whole division. Well, you say, well, Christ, why do we have to go right after it? Couldn't we, hold him by the nose, come in the back door and do it? That's what Patton said. Hold him by the nose, kick him in the ass. That's another way of, what he's doing.
I think initially there was some confusion on the definition of vulnerability and weakness. At least, initially when we started talking
Well, a guy
about
can be weak. A guy can be weak in an area, but he may not be
That's
vulnerable.
right.
We know that. I mean, people use the word, and so that's a fair question. He can be weak but not vulnerable. On the other hand, if it's a critical vulnerability, and he knows that, he's going to put his forces there, and if you try to make a direct effort against it, you're going to lose a lot of your people. It may not make the vulnerability. So in some sense, what you got to do is get him to expose that vulnerability by exploiting his weaknesses, whatever they are, or creating weaknesses, whatever they are. Does that make sense? You seem to be still hung up on it.
I have no problem with the intent being why as it relates to a task. When you're looking at a force, he's going to assign his subordinate units tasks. Now, when we talk about this thing called a commander's intent, somewhat
What he wants to achieve, the commander.
right,
And that's a higher level achievement.
well, no, what that mission that he's been assigned with a purpose with a why, an intent from the higher headquarters. Okay,
Right.
he's going to translate that to his subordinates in numerous tasks. But this intent now, the commander's intent, not as it relates to the task, is the glue, and hopefully the way he envisions this operation, this thrust unfolding in general terms, general, broad.
See, then you're going to I'm thinking we're going to get a choreograph and get nervous when you say it that way.
Oh, boy.
I get nervous when you say it. I don't know why. I feel very uncomfortable with it.
Well, but once again, when you receive,
I can be so open.
when you receive a mission with a purpose or intent from a higher headquarters, that's your mission. Now you have to go ahead and put up a plan, okay, which is going to have to include tasks for your subordinate units. So now how do we, between that mission and intent from a higher headquarters, and then derive
Are you separating? Let me ask you something. I'm getting a little confused here. Are you separating task from mission?
Let's just go back to the top. Let's say
We got a
the
problem here.
division's mission is, their mission is to seize the airfield.
Okay.
The intent, the reason we're going to seize it is to prevent the introduction of follow-on forces. So we want that airfield so
Nothing wrong in that.
Okay. Now, as a division commander, I'm going to have to tell.
Why do you want to prevent that? Because you don't want those forces here because you're trying to conduct another operation.
What we're the lead
Whatever it is.
Corps.
I understand. Whatever it is. That's right.
So that we want that airfield intact so we can bring the C-140s in.
Right. Got it.
But now as a division commander, I'm going to have to give tasks, because I envision how I'm going to do that. I have a concept of how I'm going to do it. I've got to give tasks to my
Or missions, subordinate missions.
Well, then it'll be their
See, that's
mission.
why you have me confused. You're talking about subordinate missions.
Subordinate
subordinate missions.
See, I would rather call it. See, when you say tasks, okay, as long as you think of them as subordinate missions, I have no problem with that.
We're
Okay.
saying
Okay, we're saying the same thing. I
Task
just
from,
want to be sure we're on the
task
same
from a higher
page.
headquarters translates to my
No
mission
problem.
as a subordinate.
So the tasks are just subordinate missions.
So, for example, I've identified a large force to the southeast of this airfield. And I say to the 8th Marines, occupy positions to the southeast of the airfield in order to keep the enemy from interfering with the operation. So I want him to go to wherever he needs to, southeast of here, to keep the enemy from interfering.
Okay, but I'm a little confused now. Are there any troops in that area? You say occupy. You're going to take out the troops first, or you can occupy the position. I mean, you're saying seize the airfield.
I'm just going to do this conception I said for the division. You got to seize this airfield in order to prevent the introduction of following forces.
I hear you. I got that.
Now, as a division commander, as I look at it, I've identified the major enemy here to the south. And I say, those guys
Can I raise a question at this point? Sure. What about around the airfield? Is there any enemies there? Or is it vacant?
No,
This is a very important question. Are there any enemies there, or is it just a void? It's vacant. Nobody there?
It's being protected.
Well, then see, now I have a problem. That's why I asked that question. in order to occupy those positions, you got to take out the force first. Why don't we get rid of those, then we can occupy the positions? So you're going after the terrain, I want to get rid of the force.
You didn't.
You say there's a force. I said, is there any people there?
Well, yeah. Well, I guess what I'm trying to illustrate is each one of those regiments is going to have.
See, because if you take out those people, you're going to own the airfield. Then you can say, okay, set your perimeter up, whatever you want. But I like to go first things first. Not occupy. I want to get those people out of there so I can own that airport.
Well, you didn't say occupy terrain or anything like that, sir. You
It's
said
an
do something.
occupied position. I just, you
They
can't do it.
identified the enemy force that was threatening the airfield.
No, I understand. There's an enemy force out here that can bother. I said, are there any enemies at the immediate position of the airfield? I asked that question.
I'm going to have to
The answer is yes. Well, I want to take those out so then I can occupy those positions after I take those out so I can hold out the enemy force. But I'm trying to go first things first, all I'm saying.
Yeah, I'm with you. So I'm going to have to give
That's why I asked that question.
one or two of my regiments.
See, that's why I asked if it was vacant. If there was nobody there, I said, fuck, I take the position. See, I have no problem with that. See.
But then you may have to be fighting inside out. Okay, you may not be able to hold that. That's why it's so hard to discuss because it's so situated.
But let me tell you why I raised that question so important. Patton said it very well. The trouble is, when you get fixed on something, guys want to go. They want to fight somebody. They dig in to fight. The hell, you don't want to dig in to fight. Take them out so you can hold the position first. In other words, you get things twisted about, you get yourself all hung up, and that happened in Grenada. And Patton told people, I don't want to hear anybody tell me they're trying to hold ground. He said, look, the other son of a bitch worrying about who's holding ground. Take them out. He said it over and over again. And so that's why I asked you whether there was any people. If there were no people, I said, fine, I have no problem. Just take it. I mean, I'm talking about resisting. When I'm saying people, people are going to resist the attack. Forces. So I think, we have to think that through because if you don't do it right, your people